Hello guys, welcome to Bike Matters. My name's Alex and today we're riding the Royal Enfield Classic 350. Beautiful, stunning, elegant bike. And funnily enough, we're at English Electric Motor Company, which is, you could argue, the forward way of thinking, all electric bikes. But we're not looking at that today. Maybe in the future, so stay tuned for more. But we're looking at this, the Classic 350. It's a sort of reinvented classic motorcycle from Royal Enfield. One of the oldest manufacturers out there. Single cylinder, 350cc J series motor, and it's been great fun to ride. We've had this in for a couple of weeks. Whilst I was just chatting away with Alec at English Electric Motor Company, thought I'd ride this and just talk to you about it whilst I ride back home, as it were. So, before I set off, this one here is a halcyon green, really nice paint scheme. It's like paint specs on here, it's really nicely built, it's got nice touches like the little light hood here. You've got some lights that come on, little fog light sort of vibe. Toolkit in here, centre stand as well as side stand. Lovely chromed exhaust. And this one starts at 4,400 or 4,500 pounds. Actually, this one's 4,400. You've also got the sort of classic looking editions at 4,500. And then the chrome ones at like 4,600. Really nice instrument cluster here. Nice and basic really. There's no revs. There's no gear indicator. You get a fuel gauge here in a little LCD screen. Odometer, trip A, trip B and time. But really it just keeps it nice and simple, just as Royal Enfield like to do it. But enough blabbering away. Let's get on the road and I can talk to you about what I've thought of it over the last 2 weeks of riding this around. Lovely. Oh, it's cut off. Now that is one thing, joking aside, that is one thing that I found, that the idle revs on this is quite low. So when you give it a little rev, sometimes it feels like it's dipping below what you'd expect, and there it is, it just cut out. So I've already spoke to you about the price. This one's available now in the UK, and I just really have enjoyed riding this around. It's a countryside cruiser, shall we say. I've ridden the Meteor, we've got the Hunter 350 in at the same time, which is the 350cc J series motor, which is being put to nice task here. It accelerates nicely. It's got 27 newton meters of torque, around 20 pound-foot of torque, and just mind the bumps because the suspension can get a little bit bumpy, nice and soft, but that's exactly what you want on this. And the peak power is around 20 brake horsepower. Now you may be thinking, hang on a minute, it's a 350cc single, how's it only got 20 brake horsepower? It's because this thing isn't about top speed. The top speed you'll find on this is 71, but it gives it an indicated 75 or 76, and it's not because that's all the motor's got in it. I really do think that the motor could probably stretch up further than that. Cheers love. It really does struggle to get to 70 when you're hammering away on a dual carriageway. So you're best off venturing down these back roads in the country lanes if you want to get the best out of the bike. As I say, it will certainly do 70. You can sit there, it's not bouncing off the rev limiter because it's been limited by Royal Enfield to 70. So if you're looking at jumping on a dual carriageway for a quick jaunt to get into work or commute or just get to some nicer roads, you can certainly do it, but you might find that you want a little bit more power if you're doing that for a long period of time. But that's a nice thing really. I like the fact that it sort of coaxes you into taking the lesser travelled route to get more of the fun out of the bike, because this thing does handle supremely well. It's got an 805mm seat height, and I'm a 6'3" rider, so I fit on most bikes comfortably. The tank is really low on this. My knees are basically taller than the tank when I'm sat down, but I still feel nice and comfortable on it. The ride position is very classic, it's very neutral, and you've got a twin seat on this one. So if you have a pillion on the back, they've got grab rails and they can sit there comfortably. with their scarf blowing in the wind as you go to your local cafe. So that's the power covered. There's sort of the ride comfort and the enjoyability covered. Enjoyability, is that a word? I think it is. It sounds really nice. Now, as I say, this is sort of like a 125 with more torque in a way. I'd argue that a 125 rider would be able to jump on this and just blat away happily, because it's nothing that's going to scare you. The power comes on nice and smoothly. It doesn't really like jump out at you. And like accelerating up this hill, I think I'm in 4th gear. It's still accelerating nicely and it's got the power there. And in top gear, 5th gear, because it's only got 5 gears, it feels like a bit of an overdrive. And you can really just throw this thing into corners, get a bit of lean angle on, and say here I'm turning left. If you hammer on the brakes, the ABS does a good job of not locking up the rear, which, you know, you never want the rear to lock up with ABS because it can't. But I've just really enjoyed these sort of back lane blitzes. So the brakes, superb really for the job. They're not firm by any means. They're really quite soft. So the back brake on its own slows you down, especially at low speed, and you can use it for some maneuvers and stuff like that. And it's very happy at doing that. But the front is very soft as well. The bite point, you've really got to just give it a good squeeze to feel instant braking, but it does it. And the bike weighs 192 kilograms wet, so it's not the lightest of bikes, but when you're riding it, it feels really nimble, really nice. What I want to do here is shift down into first, give it a tiny bit of a, well, have to give it a off the line start, and we'll see how quickly we accelerate, eh? I will just say whilst I'm waiting here for traffic to go, instrument cluster, really nice and classic. You know, you just got your speed on there, really. You look down, nice and clear. You see your speed. You've got your gear indicator, your neutral indicator, and your indicator indicator. Right, here we go. So you really push every gear. It's now 3rd, and we're 50. Into 60, and then you're basically at the max speed. You can push it down into 3rd or 2nd if you need a bit of oomph when you're pedaling along. But 60, it's very happy. There's not many vibrations. It's nice and comfortable, and it just feels like it will happily poodle along with the 13-litre tank forever. And when I say ever, I mean around about 230 miles. If you take this very steady in 5th gear and with the eco indicator coming on, I reckon you could probably stretch it to 250. But because it's a single and because they've limited the top speed, you're not going to be filling up every 100 miles, which is great. You can clutchless shift on this quite easily. The gearbox is solid, I've got to say. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go right here, because left, if you know this sort of area, if you recognise where I am, goes into town. And I know there's a lot of cars and traffic, and I want to avoid that. It sort of takes me nicely onto riding this in traffic and in cities and towns. It's so nimble, and the turning circle's huge on this. So steering lock is massive, and it gives you a lot of room for manoeuvres. You know, if you've got to pull a quick U-turn on, you know, a road like this, you do it with ease. You don't even have to think about it. When it's running and the motor's spinning away underneath you, it just feels nice and smooth. We did notice that when you roll off the throttle, there's a tiny bit of lag where, so even here, up the hill, roll off, and there's a sort of split second where it lurches forward because it's like, oh, running off. Nothing huge, not a problem at all. Just something you notice when you're riding. Rear view mirrors are beautiful. Nice circle, classic design. You can see really nicely out of them, I've got to say. Now, I did take that a bit wide, but that's just because I wanted to get a bit of a lean on. And the style-wise, as I say, this thing is beautiful. I'll be completely honest, I wasn't overly fussed about the style when I first saw it, but then every time I've seen it since, it just is real classic in its style. It's elegant. And I did stop in town to get a sausage roll, and an old fella was stood at the bike park bit, and first thing he says to me, and really the only thing he says to me, was, "What year is it then, mate?" And I didn't know whether he meant what year is it in general. I was going to say 2023. But then I was like, oh no, you're talking about a bike. Yeah, so the bike itself is 2023, it's brand new. And he said, no, it's not, it's classic. I was like, yeah, it's classic, but this is the weirdest conversation I've ever had by all accounts. But he was convinced that it was an old school bike, and that's exactly what Royal Enfield are going for. You can chuck on loads of accessories, you can get a touring screen, you can get panniers, you can get crash bars, sump guards, all this sort of fun stuff to personalise it. And that's exactly what Royal Enfield are all about. They love a bike that lets your creative juices flow and allows you to just open up the throttle, explore these back roads, and just take an easy step into motorcycling. I'd certainly recommend anyone with a 125cc license stepping into the A2 category or even full license to have a look at one of these if you want an easygoing cruiser, because it's just so easy to ride. And for the price point, 4,400, and you go to your local dealer and they might have some special offers for you, probably works out about 70 quid a month. I think that's fantastic. You know, they've really stepped up the game when they're approaching, you know, the newer rider, and you know, with the style on their mind. They've got loads of custom bikes. They love a custom job. We saw them at the bike shed recently, and they just were loving the fact that everyone was approaching them looking at their custom bikes, which is understandable. You just feel nice and calm and collected on this bike. It's just so easy to ride. Even if you're an older rider and you're looking at getting something that's a little bit more powerful than a 125, still frugal, still cheap to run, stylish, you'd be hard pressed to really turn away from this. Also, so easy to ride that you can just filter away past all cars. Lovely. But as I'm approaching our HQ, I think I've rabbited on enough about this bike. It's a classic bike. It really does everything you'd ever want from a Royal Enfield at this price point. There's not really many rivals in the 350 sector that this can really compete against. You know, they've got the Meteor 350. That's certainly one that you might want to look at if you've got your 350 hat on. Are you okay? But I think Royal Enfield have smashed this one. We've also got the Hunter 350, and me and Felix been riding around on both of these for the last couple of weeks. We've just enjoyed every single second of it. You know, there might be people who are sitting there thinking, well, it hasn't got enough power. It's only got 20 brake horsepower. It's true, you know. I'm sort of in that camp as well. It'd be lovely if you had more power in this, but they've also got the Super Meteor 650 that's got more power. And you've got to remember, for the Indian market, having ridden in India myself, you don't need a bike that goes 100 miles an hour there, because any manner of things can jump out at you. But we're pulling in here, but it's a beautiful bike. I really enjoyed having this one in. My full composed thoughts are going to be on the Lexham Insurance website, where the Bike Matters blog is found. So you find all your specs and all your stats on there. For a ride, this thing has just been phenomenal. Really, really, really enjoyed it. Just looks stunning. You know, you got your twin spar chassis, your J series motor in there, and it's just really well built. Just looks stunning, really. Really, really. I've said really a lot because it's really impressed me. In any case, thanks very much for watching. Leave a comment down below of what you think of the classic 350, if you'd go for it, or if you'd prefer something more modern style like the Meteor. I think this is bang on. I really enjoyed riding this. Like, subscribe, and I think that's me done. So I'll say see you later. Ciao.